In the early 1990s, an 18-acre estate in Westfield, Indiana, stood as a pristine example of the American dream. The property, valued at nearly $1 million, featured a sprawling Tudor-style mansion surrounded by quiet, manicured woods. But in June of 1996, while the owner was away, law enforcement arrived with a search warrant and began digging in those quiet woods. Investigators found an estimated 10,000 human bone fragments, burned, crushed, and scattered in the dirt. The owner of this property was Herbert Baumeister. To his neighbors and colleagues, Herb was a successful entrepreneur, a vocal young conservative, and a devoted husband raising 3 children. The discovery at the estate forced a confrontation between these two realities, raising the question of how a symbol of suburban success could coexist with a mass burial ground. The warning signs appeared early. As a teenager, Herb developed morbid obsessions, carrying dead animals into classrooms and acting out with bizarre, disruptive behavior. A psychiatric evaluation diagnosed him with untreated paranoid schizophrenia and antisocial personality disorder. Growing up in the conservative climate of the 1960s, his parents and teachers quickly swept these massive psychological red flags under the rug. He was sent back to school without sustained treatment. Left to navigate his compulsions alone, Herb learned to mimic normal behavior. He married a patient woman named Julie, started a family, and aggressively cultivated a straight-laced, traditional public image. He poured his energy into business, opening a chain of thrift stores called Save-A-Lot. The shops were clean, well-organized, and highly profitable. This financial boom allowed the Baumeisters to purchase the sprawling Fox Hollow Farm estate as their crowning achievement. The acquisition of the mansion provided Herb with the social authority needed to insulate his private behavior from public scrutiny. Eventually, the strain of maintaining this facade cracked. As his business faltered and his marriage deteriorated, Herb created an entirely separate, nocturnal alter ego he called Brian Smart. Operating under this fake name, he cruised the gay bars of downtown Indianapolis, deliberately seeking out marginalized, vulnerable men to invite back to his estate. Once they arrived, guests were led to the isolated indoor pool. Herb had bizarrely decorated the perimeter with fully dressed store mannequins, designed to disorient his victims in the dim light. He initiated intimate encounters and suggested they engage in autoerotic asphyxiation. Under the guise of a consensual kink, Herb wrapped a pool hose or a belt around their necks and intentionally strangled them until they died. These killings were meticulously calculated. Herb timed his murders to perfectly align with his family's summer vacation schedule. This meant he could strangle a man one night, bury the remains, and host a cheerful family barbecue in the exact same spot a week later. His ability to operate unchecked was heavily aided by the authorities. As young gay men vanished from the city, police actively dismissed the missing persons reports, assuming the victims had simply run off to live somewhere else. Herb was protected by a dual-layered armor. He held the unquestioned authority of local wealth, while his victims faced a society that showed utter indifference to their disappearance. With law enforcement refusing to act, the local LGBTQ+ community and the victims' mothers banded together, hiring an independent private investigator to trace the disappearances. The breakthrough came from a survivor. A man operating under the pseudonym Tony Harris actively tracked down Brian Smart, survived an attempted strangulation in the pool room, and managed to secure Herb's actual license plate number. The internal facade finally broke when Julie recalled her son finding a human skull on the property 2 years earlier. By June of 1996, she had filed for divorce and granted authorities the permission they needed to search the estate. The moment Herb realized police were actively searching Fox Hollow Farm, he abandoned his family and fled across the border into Canada. Cornered in an Ontario provincial park, he took his own life. He left behind a rambling note complaining about his failing thrift stores, yet entirely ignored the existence of the men he killed. Ending his life was a calculated, cowardly exit. He chose death over ever publicly acknowledging the monster behind the mask. Back at the estate, forensic teams faced the agonizing scientific challenge of piecing together the 10,000 co-mingled bone fragments he left behind. The case remained partially unsolved for decades, until recent advancements in forensic genetic genealogy revitalized the investigation in the 2020s. Through painstaking laboratory work, scientists have finally restored names to long-lost victims like Manuel Resendez and Alan Livingston, bringing answers to their families nearly 30 years later. Wealth and societal prejudice successfully hid a serial killer in plain sight for years, but the relentless resilience of a marginalized community, paired with the march of science, guarantees the truth will ultimately